Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. It is finally here. The best month of the year to hunt, in my opinion, is October, and it's finally here. It's the 10th here today, and I want to talk a little bit about my strategies when it comes to these early October days and hunting big bucks, trying to get that done early and maybe put a buck on the ground. Now, there's a lot of things going on when you're talking about early October buck hunting. Now, we've got changing timber structures. We've got food sources coming in and out of attraction phases. We've got hormones all over the place. Testosterone continually on the rise as we build up into the most fun part of the year, which is that pre-rut and then peak rut stages. Now, one of the most important keys, though, is this early October period is still a bedding to food source movement. We're not hunting rut spots right now. We're not hunting pinch points and funnels where bucks are going to be cruising looking for does. This is still a bedding to food source movement time period, but at the same time, those bucks are starting to get curious. They are starting to check out some of those prevalent doe food sources. Some of those family groups are starting to get busted up a little bit. The fawns are starting to get kicked. A lot of things are going on in the deer woods, and there's a lot of opportunity out there to take advantage of. Now, first and foremost, food sources, and it's probably the most important because during this time period, still on that bedding to food source movement, that's the deer's focus at this time of the year. So we've got all of these different changes. We've got bean fields being harvested. You know, most of the beans around here were already dried out and they're getting harvested at this time of the year. So that food source is wiped out. Now we're talking about acorns and apples. Depending on the production of the trees during that given year, those food sources can run out at any time point. You know, for instance, I've got an orchard area on one of my properties, and they've been hitting that apple section for, you know, probably going on a month now. So I'm anticipating a lot of those apples being already eaten up. That food source is on its way out. There's not a lot of attraction there anymore. But at the same time, my old man actually was able to knock down a beautiful old buck out of that stand last night, actually, coming into a brassica plot, layered with winter rye, coming into a mock scrape. And that's going to be later on in this video. I'll talk you guys through that kind of stuff. But the changing food sources are super important because as hunters, we have to be adaptable. We have to be able to change our approach on the fly to put ourselves in the most opportunistic situation. So we're looking at beans being harvested. We're looking at corn on the verge of being harvested. We're looking at green alfalfa fields. You know, towards the end of this month, they're going to start to brown out a little bit. During this time period right now, I love alfalfa. It's still lush and green. A lot of times the temperatures aren't nearly cold enough to knock it down. We're going to get those first few frosts in the morning, but those deer are still pounding that green. And from my experience, once those green bean leaves start to come off and then now they're drying out and being harvested, that alfalfa is king. I love alfalfa as far as a primary food source that a lot of these deer are gravitating towards. When you're talking about bucks transitioning to doe food sources, checking things out, also feeding on a high quality food source, alfalfa is my favorite during this, you know, week to 2 weeks into October. That's where I've had some of my best hunts where a lot of deer, you know, 20, 30 deer all feeding in a big alfalfa field and doing a whole lot of early pre-rut activity, you know, still putting on that feed bag, preparing for winter, but those bucks are already fired up. They're displaying dominance. They're trying to check things out, and they're trying to lay down the law in what they think is their territory. And now with these colder mornings, those first few frosts, we're looking at the change in the timber structure, which is going to be a lot of that weed and summer growth that's growing on the understory. If you don't have woody browse, if you don't have woody stemmy structure, a lot of that green vegetation is dying off. So those summer hangouts where these bucks are hanging cool, there's a lot of grasses, there's a lot of overmature canopy trees. Those bedding areas are starting to become unsafe in their opinion. They're looking for a high stem count cover throughout the fall. They're looking for safety. They're looking for breeding opportunities. They're looking for high quality food sources, and they're looking for low pressure areas. Now that all changes when those temperatures start to drop, fall starts to come around, and those summer hangouts where those bachelor groups were bedding up, trying to stay cool, staying out of the bugs, getting a lot of wind flow, those are now irrelevant. Now they're looking for high, thick stem count cover. and they're looking for safety, security, breeding opportunities, and high quality food. So for instance, one of my target bucks, I had him on one camera all year long, and that was the only camera I had him on. From probably, I would say, June until probably 15 days ago, I had him on one singular camera. In the last 15 days, he's hit 2 other cameras, I would say probably 1,500 yards from that initial camera that he was on all summer. So his summer core area was very tight. He did not move very far, but now as that property is starting to become less desirable as we push into fall, the timber structure's not as good, he's out of those bachelor group habits, and now he's focused on safety, security, breeding opportunities, and trying to display dominance within that core area that he's going to spend his fall in. And thankfully, that's a lot of my ground that he's going to be running on by the looks of it right now. I'm actually going to go in after him in the morning. We're going to have a north wind starting out tomorrow morning. It's going to be in the upper 30s, a real cool night. About a week ago, I had him coming through there on a day that was starting out of the north, shifting to an east. We've got the same conditions tomorrow. We're starting out of the north real light. We're shifting to a southeast by 10, 11 a.m. So I'm anticipating when he starts to feel that wind shift, he's going to want to come through there again and change bedding locations. So that's just a theory of mine. It is yet to prove itself, but I feel pretty good about my chances. He was there during daylight on that wind switch, so I think I've got a pretty good opportunity to get in there on him and have a good sit. So that's what's going on during this early October time period. But what am I focusing on? Well, I'm focusing on the remaining scarce food sources, which is going to be acorns and apples, right? You know, and scarce always depends on the property you're hunting. Some properties might have a ton of apple trees and there's leftover after the year. Some properties might have a ton of oak trees and there's leftover after the year with them too. So it all depends on the property you're hunting and having some woodsmanship and getting out and seeing, okay, where are they still feeding? Are they still in the acorns? Are they still in the apples? Is that still a viable food source? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So I'm focusing on those areas. I'm focusing on green alfalfa. Like I said, I love that during this time of the year. Before you get those real cold, consistent nights and that stuff starts to brown out, I love green alfalfa during this first half of October and then some if the weather stays cooperative. I'm also looking at food plots right now. The brassicas are starting to come into peak attraction. Those deer are starting to pound on them. The layering of rye that we're doing in late August, early September, then again right at opener on the 15th. And then anything else that you need to put on there to fill in any of those bare spots within your plots. Those deer are pounding rye right now. That buck that my dad killed last night, he came in just chomping on a thick stand of winter rye that we've got in front of that stand location. So I'm focused on food plots, alfalfa, remaining timber food sources, acorns and apples. Like I said, those brassicas are really starting to pop off. Clover right now, before that gets browned off and killed. Any peas and beans that are left in those fall plots, those late planted peas and beans, those are highly attractive right now as well. The oats are a little over mature, so they're not getting pounded like they were early season. But like I said, that's where that rye comes in to replace some of those seed varieties that aren't any longer pulling deer and attracting deer. On top of that, what else am I looking for? I'm looking at scrapes. I'm looking at all the mock scrapes that I've put out throughout the summer months. Those are getting hammered right now. And I cannot emphasize that enough. I've got the videos to prove it, but I'll save those for a later date because I'm still after some of these deer. But some of these scrapes that I've positioned are getting hit by 4 or 5 bucks a night. And I think that has to do with them shifting into those fall ranges. These deer are talking through these scrapes. They're communicating through scent. These bucks are shifting into fall ranges, and all of them are competing for a spot in these high quality locations, right? There's properties that can only hold so many mature deer without, at the end of the day, killing each other to death because they want to breed so bad and they're so driven by testosterone during that time. They're so highly competitive. A certain property can only hold so many, but I'm looking at those mock scrapes as a super big opportunity, especially this time of the year where these bucks are really starting to ramp up and do what they do best, which is lay down a lot of sign, display dominance, try to figure out that hierarchy. Okay, who's the king in this area? Can I take him? Do I want to challenge him? Am I going to hang out here? All these deer are talking, this is my spot. Don't compete with me. These are my does. This is my food source. And this is my area, so stay out. So a lot of these bucks are laying down a lot of sign. I've got a ton of trail videos of bucks scraping leaves already here in early October. I was actually kind of surprised by it because, you know, that's one of the earliest times that I've seen bucks actually laying down legitimate scrapes. So a lot of these deer are starting to get fired up. Those first few cold days, get them moving, get them fired up. But at the same time, those mock scrapes are a heck of a spot for inventory. If you do have a camera on them, it can tell you a lot about a buck's movement. If he's coming through an area and he's always hitting that mock scrape, that tells you, okay, when he comes through here, if I'm in that stand and that mock scrape's 25 yards away, he's going to come to that. So that's a good source of intel to know when you do see him. If you see him out at 80, if you see him out at 60, you know, sit back. He's probably going to come in, and prepare yourself. I love those mock scrapes for having a nice physical presence to get that deer's eyes and attention off me, so I can sit in the tree and do this while he's looking up at this mock scrape doing his thing, laying down some sign. But those are excellent areas to be watching for this early October. Those food plots that you got catered for this time of the year. You got the brassica, you got the forage peas, you got the late planted beans if there's any left. Even if you got that winter rye, if you layer that on there later in the year. But I'm looking for scrapes, I'm looking for food sources. And then at the same time, be on the lookout for those stranger bucks that are rolling in, shifting out of those summer grounds, coming into your property where you've got the best high quality, low pressure, high stem count bedding areas, and at the same time you got high quality food and doe breeding opportunity. So I hope this helps you guys. I'm gonna be in the stand in the morning, like I said. I'll probably hit it again in the afternoon. It looks like a pretty solid day. We're gonna have about a 5-degree drop from the high this evening. I opted to stay out this evening since my old man killed one last night. Beautiful buck, big 10-pointer. Actually one of the deer that we didn't really know if he was there or not. We didn't have a lot of good pictures of him. He was probably one of the least consistent good deer we had on camera, so he was kind of a stranger, decided to roll in. Like I said, I think he just shifted in and he decided, okay, this is where I want to spend my time this fall. And he made a costly mistake last night coming into that brassica rye plot and checking out that mock scrape. My dad took advantage. So I wish you guys luck. I'll be kicking out videos here. I've been on the run a lot lately, but let me know if you guys kill anything. I hope this helps you guys. Good luck.